Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com. We're at Farm Tech in Edmonton, Alberta, and right now we're joined by Patti Miller. She is the Chief Commissioner with the Canadian Grain Commission. There's enough C's in that, that's an alliteration.
But not CCC.
That's right. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
So, you've been in this role how long now?
It will be a year in February. It's amazing.
Are you enjoying yourself?
Oh yeah, it's a really great crew, and there's lots of interesting challenges in front of us these days, so I'm having fun.
Okay, so you were in government earlier in your career.
I was.
Then you were at the Canola Council of Canada, and now you're back on the government side. Do you miss the side there at the Canola Council?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, I miss the people. They were fantastic in that organization, and you had a wide variety of things that you were dealing with. But at the Canadian Grain Commission, there are some really interesting challenges that I think could have some profound impact on the industry. Yeah. So it's great to be involved in that, and it's a good team.
So what are some of those things you guys are working on?
Well, of course, front and center, people are interested in the surplus.
Yeah.
So
our audience here, we hear about that all the time.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Strangely enough, so do we.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we were 3 commissioners appointed new right all together in February. Hired a new COO 4 months after we started, and we're able to actually roll back some of the largest fees that were causing the accumulation of the surplus. So I think everybody knows that in August, outward weighing and inspection was reduced, and that pretty much stopped the growth in the surplus. So then now the big question is, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, what are you going to do with it?
Lots of farmers are asking for their money back. Like, we did consultations, and in one form or another, people are saying, give me my money back, or let's have a fee holiday, or let's reduce fees for a longer period of time. And so those are all things that we've kind of tried to look at and see what are the actual mechanics of doing that. Because I did run farm income programs, and actually giving out money is always harder than it seems.
How would you, my understanding is it's impossible to give individual money back because the grain companies are the ones that collect it. Like, is that even possible?
Well, I never like to say nothing's possible, but it would require a legislative change for us to actually give the money back. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, yes, the money comes through grain companies. So you'd have to find a way of validating who paid what to whom and when. And that would chew through a lot of money in and of itself. And then things like a fee holiday or reduced fees, again, the money comes through grain companies. So as producers, are you going to see that direct benefit, in a competitive environment? One would hope so, but it's a question on people's minds.
That probably isn't the biggest thing you're working, that's an issue that you're dealing with.
It is an issue.
But what are some of the other things you're working on?
Well, I like to, we started this conversation about the surplus, but one of the things that's really tied to that's important to me is what are the kinds of transformative things we can look at as a grain commission with the industry to make some significant changes. Like, we went for 20 years without any change in fees, and that means 20 years without upgrading technology, whether it's IMIT, whether it's some of your lab equipment, your ability to move more quickly, more cost effectively. So, I look at innovation and I say, that's something that we really need to focus on. And not just innovation in equipment, but innovation in our processes, our systems, how we work together. So for me, that's something I'm really passionate about.
So farmers here are thinking about technology all the time. It would make sense that our grain system would do the same.
Yes, yeah, wouldn't it?
Why has that been so slow?
Well, I think part of it is because, the fees were fixed for 20 years, and really there wasn't an ability to invest. The Government of Canada does provide some funding for the Grain Research Laboratory because they view that as being in the public good. But as an industry, are we investing in areas that are going to make us better? And I look at it, like leapfrogging over things, because we really want to reposition ourselves as the best of the best.
Right. So is there any, there's a lot of stuff happening, north-south discussions with NAFTA and all that kind of stuff going on. Has the Grain Commission had to get into any of that in terms of reducing regulatory burden on stuff going north-south?
Well, certainly we were involved in providing information and helping people understand the impact of any different potential changes. But at the end of the day, that's in the trade negotiators' hands. So we provided the information. It will be them as they discuss NAFTA and all of the other things that they need to negotiate.
So right now there's a lot of flux in this whole area of associations and groups and everybody trying to figure out, okay, what does the future look like?
Yeah.
Clearly, you're familiar with the Canola Council situation, what's going on. We've got farm groups that are talking about merging, some working closer together. We've got a lot of consolidation in agribusiness. Is the Grain Commission kind of going through some of the same sorts of things, trying to figure out where you fit and what you need to be doing to make yourself extremely relevant in the future?
I think that's part of what we need to do. I mean, the Grain Commission itself went through some fairly significant changes when inward weighing and inspection was removed, right? So we downsized by almost a half. And the wheat board is gone, the industry is changing, the associations are changing. So how do we become engaged in a really good conversation with the industry to say, where do we all want to go collectively? What is that collective vision for the future, and what's our role in helping people get there? So,
and this is probably because of my ignorance, but when you have those discussions with the grain companies trying to figure some of this out, is everybody relatively on the same page, or is there huge differences of opinion?
We're not even yet talking about what that is.
Okay.
I think a lot of the conversations I've had over the last year tend to be about individual issues and decisions, and that's a risk in the industry when we focus on what's going to happen with Lillian, what are these other changes around dockage and commercial cleanliness. Those are good and important, and they absolutely have a financial impact on people. But we can't always focus on those things at the expense of looking at where we truly want to be in the future.
Right. Okay. Does the Grain Commission get it all into dealing with, I've been hearing more and more discussions actually on the trade show floor here about things like MRLs.
Yes.
And things like that. This continually seems to be a real tough, because there's things that happen on the farm that make agronomic sense, and then some of those things don't necessarily fit into what we're trying to do from an export standpoint.
Yeah.
Is this a continual battle, or can we close some of these gaps?
Well, it would be wonderful to think we're closing some gaps. We need to. I mean, I don't see this going out of the consumer's conscious. And certainly the Grain Commission is very involved in measuring maximum residue limits and things at the export position. But can we do more with the associations to help farmers really understand at the end of the day what some of their actions can result in?
Yeah, because we've got products with canola, we've got situations with wheat, also pulses, glyphosate residues. There's in each of the crops they have their challenges.
Yeah, and we've got a great team of experts at the Grain Commission, and I think we are working with countries around the world to make sure that we're talking about the same kinds of issues. Like, are we measuring things the same? Is it truly an issue? Trying to advocate at a regulatory level. That's one of the areas that we're really focused on now.
So in your first just over a year here at the Grain Commission, what's been your biggest surprise?
I think just the opportunity. I mean, people always ask me, do you love this new job? And I smile and say, hey, I'm running a regulatory agency. People tend not to love regulators. So the biggest surprise to me is, the passion of the people and the potential for us to use regulations in a way that helps us leapfrog into the marketplace.
Yeah, because the CFIB had a study that came out about red tape and how farmers feel there's an overburden of red tape. Now, who applies red tape? Government and regulators.
Yes, we do.
So how do you when you have that kind of thought out in the market, How do you try to convince people, well, it's a selling process, that this regulation, which is red tape, is beneficial to you?
Is there for a reason, yes. Yeah, it's very interesting because, I participated with Cereals Canada and SIGI going out on the new crop missions, and some of my fellow commissioners did some of the other ones, and you constantly hear from customers that quality is our competitive advantage. Consistency and quality is Canada's competitive advantage. But bringing that right back to the farm when somebody is dealing with changes in varieties that are difficult to understand and have an immediate financial impact, I think it's important that we're engaged in that conversation and helping educate.
Patti, it's great to chat with you.
Oh, it's nice to see you too. Thanks so much for asking me.